Okay, so this is part 1 of the review. For number 1, I'm asking for the attributes of the cube root of x. It's the parent function for cube roots. So I need the domain, range, x-intercepts, y-intercepts, rotational symmetry, so domain for all cube roots is all real numbers. The range is also all real numbers. The cube root goes to the origin, so both the x and the y-intercept is at 0. And the symmetry is 180-degree rotational symmetry about the origin. Since the cube root and the cubic function are inverses of each other, and they both go through the origin, their attributes are very similar. Their domain and range is all real numbers. The cube function goes to the origin, so the x-intercept and the y-intercept are 0. And it also has 180-degree rotational symmetry about the origin. Number 3, you're asked to find the inverse and compare it to the original function. For this one, we talked about writing out your steps to find the inverse. The first thing you're doing to x is subtracting 4. The next thing you did was cube it. Then you multiplied by 3. By 2. And then you added 3. So for the inverse, we're going to undo all those steps. So I'm going to start at the last thing I did and do the opposite. So the opposite of addition is subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 3. The opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by 2. The opposite of cube is cube root. The opposite of subtract 4 is add 4. So I'm going to take all those steps and create my inverse function. So it says the first thing I did to x was subtract 3. So I'm going to say x minus 3. Then divide by 2. Then cube root it and add 4. So now it's saying compare it to the symmetry. The original function has symmetry, has 180-degree rotational symmetry about the turning point 4, 3. So F inverse is going to have rotational symmetry about 3, 4. You can see they're opposite because you switch x and y. The domain and range, again, is all real numbers. To find the x-intercept, I can put that in the calculator. y1, I put in 2 times x minus 4 cubed plus 3. I'm going to graph it. You can see it only crosses once. So I'm going to do second calc, and I want to find the 0. Then it asks for left bound. That's good enough. Press enter. Right bound is going to be above where it crosses the x-axis. Press enter. Guess. I don't want to guess. Just press enter. So it says the x value is 2.855 whatever. So round it to 2.86. The y-intercept, it looks like it crosses way down there. I can just go to the table and look where x is 0. That's a huge number. So the y-intercept is when x is 0, negative 125. So these are inverse functions, so the y and the x-intercept should be opposite, but I'm just going to test that. So to get the cube root, math 4, I need parentheses, x minus 3 divided by 2, then outside that, plus 4. So I'm going to go to the table and find my y-intercept for it first. Yeah, you can see the y-intercept is 2.86. And so I know my x-intercept has to be the opposite, negative 125. And that's the original, this is the inverse. The next problem asks me to graph the inverse. So first I need to find the inverse. So I'm going to go ahead and do my steps again. Look at x. The first thing I did was add 3. Then I cube rooted. Then I multiplied by 4. Then I subtracted 1. So for my inverse, the first thing I'm going to do is add 1. Then I'm going to divide by 4. Then the opposite of cube root is cube. The opposite of add 4 is subtract. Add 3 and subtract 3. So my inverse function should look something like this. X plus 1, divide by 4, cube, subtract 3. So I can go ahead and put this in y1 and graph it. I need parentheses, 2 sets for my numerator, then my denominator, and close that, and I'm cubing all of it, and then subtracting 3. It's a nice cubic. I'm going to find some points that I can use. -1, -3 looks good. -5, -4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3, -2. 7, 5. So I know it has to look something like this, so I can just kind of connect my dots. Good enough. Now this is asking me to list my attributes, so I can talk about my transformations for my parent function. The first thing I did was add 2 on the inside, so that transformation is shifting my graph to the left 2, because x is always opposite, x has to be different. And that 3 is doing a vertical stretch. That 6 is shifting all my y values down 6. And my domain and range, all real numbers. And then I can go to my calculator to find my x and y intercepts. My y-intercept is at 18. Looks like my x-intercept is in between 0 and -1. Yeah. So second calc, 2. I need to get to the left sides, down there, enter. My right side's above, enter, enter. -0.74.